Hello and welcome to another edition of Foreign Dispatches on Channels Television, the program that takes you around the globe in 25 minutes. I'm Tenyola Shoboale. On the program this week, Russian opposition Alexei Navalny is out of a medically induced coma as Russia continues to face growing pressure to investigate circumstances surrounding his alleged poisoning. Plus, court overturns life sentences against unnamed defendants for journalist Jamal Khashoggi's murder to between 7 and 20 years in jail. Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny, whose Germany says was poisoned by a weapons-grade Novichok nerve agent, is now out of a medically induced coma. The 44-year-old anti-corruption campaigner and one of President Vladimir Putin's fiercest critics fell ill on a domestic flight last month.
Berlin's charity hospital, which has been treating Alexei Navalny since he was airlifted to Germany after falling ill on a Russian domestic flight last month, said on Monday, September the 7th, that his condition has improved and is being weaned off mechanical ventilation. 44-year-old Navalny is an anti-corruption campaigner who has led nationwide protests against the Russian authorities. He first made his mark in 2008 when he started blogging about alleged malpractice and corruption at some of Russia's big state-controlled corporations. However, he has been banned from standing against President Vladimir Putin in recent elections because of a conviction for embezzlement. He denies the crime, saying his legal troubles are Kremlin's reprisals for his fierce criticism. Germany's government last week said that Navalny was poisoned with Novichok, a group of advanced nerve agents developed by the Soviet Union in the 1970s and 1980s. It's the same substance the United Kingdom said was used against Russian double agent Sergei Skripal and his daughter, both of whom survived in an attack in England in 2018. The UK put the blame squarely on Russian intelligence, but Moscow denied any role. The UK charged 2 Russian men with the poisoning. They claimed they had visited Salisbury as tourists and denied any involvement in the attack. Responding to the situation, Russia's foreign ministry said it had summoned the German ambassador to Moscow over the statements. Officials have also accused Germany of being slow to share the findings of its investigation, despite a request from prosecutors.
We don't have the information from Germany. It all follows the old scenario. There are accusations against us being voiced publicly when our official requests to employ the agreements of lawful help and provide us with the data remain without an answer.
Navalny's associates say the use of Novichok shows only the Russian state could be responsible, but the Kremlin fiercely denies any involvement.
The UN Rights Office says Russia needs to go beyond just denying the poisoning of Navalny. Instead, the UN agency says Moscow needs to conduct an impartial and transparent investigation into the crime that occurred on Russian soil.
The United Nations Human Rights Office called on Russia on Tuesday to conduct or cooperate with a full independent investigation into Germany's findings that opposition figure Alexei Navalny was poisoned with Novichok, a Soviet Union-developed military-grade nerve agent. Moscow has repeatedly denied any involvement, saying that it has seen no evidence that Navalny was poisoned. However, citing the Skripal case and the poisoning of Russian defector Alexander Litvinenko, who was killed in London in 2006, the UN says proper legal processes have not been carried out in previous similar incidents, resulting in close to total impunity.
It's not good enough to simply deny he was poisoned and deny the need for a thorough, independent, impartial and transparent investigation into this assassination attempt. It is incumbent on the Russian authorities to fully investigate who was responsible for this crime, a very serious crime that was committed on Russian soil, the number of cases of poisoning or other forms of targeted assassination of current or former Russian citizens, either within Russia itself or on foreign soil, over the past 2 decades is profoundly disturbing.
The Office of the High Commissioner says it's not in a position to attribute direct blame on anyone, but questions need to be answered regarding the use of Novichok.
The High Commissioner notes that nerve agents and radioactive isotopes such as Novichok and polonium-210 are sophisticated substances that are extremely hard to source. These are not materials that you can buy in a pharmacy or a farm shop or a hardware store. As the High Commissioner says, this raises numerous questions. Why use substances like these? Who is using them? And how did they acquire them?
The attack on Navalny has been met with widespread international condemnation. The EU says it has already started talks about how to react and that Russia's track record of investigating past killings of prominent Kremlin critics was poor.
We would want to see the investigation which is thorough, which is transparent, which is independent, that means free of any interference, and we hope that we would be able to see the results of such investigation. I cannot preempt what would be the results. When we see the results, when we see the procedure, we will make our assessment then. I can only recall from the past that Mr. Navalny is not the first one who became victim of such cowardly and inhumane attack or assassination attempt. We've seen other people in Russia being killed, other opposition voices being silenced. I can remind only Anna Politkovskaya, Sergei Magnitsky, Boris Nemtsov. Did we have satisfactory results from the investigation of their assassinations? Well, the track record is not very satisfactory.
And while the Kremlin has remained defiant in the face of global unease over Russia's role in the incident, Navalny's associates have pointed the finger of blame directly at President Putin.
Navalny's condition has improved, but the German-Russian relationship looks far less healthy. A dispute over what caused the 44-year-old to collapse is straining ties between Germany, where he's currently being treated, and Russia, which denies Berlin's accusation that he was poisoned with Novichok. The Russian doctor who initially treated Navalny believes his condition was not caused by poisoning, but instead a metabolic disorder.
The chief toxicologist at the Siberian hospital, who was the first to treat Navalny, Alexander Sabayev, said he initially suspected poisoning and that he and his colleagues treated him accordingly.
The initial diagnosis was coma of unknown nature. He arrived on the plane and the ambulance staff suspected poisoning. We will not say what kind, but they did suspect that.
Navalny was put on a ventilator and into an induced coma and given the emergency drug atropine. But Sabayev says the Russian laboratory findings were conclusive that Navalny had not been poisoned. He now believes the politician was suffering from a serious metabolic disorder.
It was not caused by Novichok for sure. It is not poisoning. It is an illness, metabolic syndrome, metabolic coma caused by a deep metabolic disorder.
Novichok nerve agents trigger a wave of deadly effects, including slowing heart rate, fluid on the lung, and permanent nerve damage across the body. Germany concluded last week that Navalny was poisoned with Novichok, the same substance that Britain said was used against a Russian double agent and his daughter in an attack in England in 2018. In the 2018 British case of the poisoning of Skripal and his daughter, traces of Novichok were found far and wide. One policeman got sick and a woman died after becoming contaminated. Rejecting Germany's finding, Sabayev notes that there were no signs that the Russian doctors who had treated Navalny had poisoning symptoms.
Everyone from the staff who contacted with Navalny is alive and well. No one has complained about any health issues.
However, sticking to its own findings, Germany warns that if Moscow fails to cooperate with investigations into Navalny's poisoning within the next few days, Berlin will start talking to European partners about sanctions. An even more explosive threat is that for the first time, Angela Merkel's government is no longer ruling out halting building work on the nearly completed pipeline Nord Stream 2, which is supposed to bring Russian gas to Germany using a pipeline beneath the Baltic Sea.
Let's shift our focus now to Saudi Arabia, where authorities have issued final verdicts against 8 suspects in the murder of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi in October 2018, sentencing 5 of the defendants to 20 years in prison. This comes after Khashoggi's family pardoned 5 of the suspects in May, thereby sparing them the death penalty.
Final verdicts were issued in Saudi Arabia for 8 people in the murder of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi on Monday. Local news station reports that 5 people were given 20 years in prison, another person received a 10-year sentence, and the 2 remaining people were ordered to serve 7 years in prison. None of the defendants were named. Khashoggi, a critic of Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, was last seen at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul on October 2, 2018, where he had gone to obtain documents for his impending wedding. Prior to his killing, Khashoggi had been living in exile in the United States and had written critically of Prince Mohammed in columns for the Washington Post. His body was reportedly dismembered and removed from the building, and his remains have not been found. Turkey apparently had the Saudi consulate bugged and shared audio of the killing with the CIA, among other intelligence agencies. After repeatedly denying any involvement for weeks, the Saudi government called the assassination a rogue operation. At an earlier stage in the trial, the kingdom tried 11 people in total in December 2019, sentencing 5 to death and ordering 3 others to lengthy prison terms for covering up the crime. The Saudi trial, however, concluded the killing was not premeditated. That paved the way for Salah Khashoggi, one of the journalist's sons, to months later announce the family had forgiven his killers, which essentially allows them to be pardoned from execution in accordance with Islamic law. Charges were also dismissed against the most high-profile figures, including former Deputy Intelligence Chief Ahmed al-Asiri and Saudi Consulate General at the Istanbul Consulate Mohammed al-Otaibi. The murder of Khashoggi drew international condemnation, and the CIA concluded that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman personally ordered the killing. Riyadh's version of what happened on October 2, 2018 has repeatedly shifted as new details emerged, but it has always maintained that neither bin Salman nor his father King Salman knew of the operation to target Khashoggi.
The trial has been criticized by the United Nations and human rights campaigners who say that the high-level architects of the murder remain free. Khashoggi's fiancé also says the kingdom is closing the case without the world knowing the truth about who is responsible for his murder.
The UN Human Rights Office says the Saudi trial into the killing of critic Jamal Khashoggi lacked transparency and fell short of assigning accountability for the crime.
This is a case where there hasn't been proper transparency in the justice process, and clearly those responsible should be prosecuted and given sentences commensurate with the crime, which would be, in the case of such a horrendous crime, would be very, very lengthy jail sentences. But there's a whole issue of transparency in the conduct of the case.
The trial has been widely criticized by rights groups who note that no senior officials nor anyone suspected of ordering the killing was found guilty. The independence of the court was also brought into question. Questions still remain over Prince Mohammed bin Salman's role, with several Western intelligence agencies alluding he had knowledge of the operation beforehand. Prince Mohammed has said he had nothing to do with the murder, but acknowledged it happened under his watch.
It's a state killing.
Agnes Callamard, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on extrajudicial, summary or arbitrary executions, also found credible evidence that Prince Mohammed and other senior Saudi officials were liable for the killing in an investigative report published in June 2019. On Monday, she called the verdict a parody of justice, saying the trial was not fair or transparent and did not address Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's involvement. Khashoggi's fiancé has also denounced the verdict, calling it a farce. She says the most important questions, like who planned it, who ordered it, and where is the body, remain unanswered.
When Foreign Dispatches returns in just a moment, the Congolese diaspora in Dubai seeks integration in the African community, and residents in Beirut find hope and healing in music. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Foreign Dispatches on Channels Television. Though the coronavirus pandemic forced many people around the world to socially distance themselves, it has also brought the world closer to fight a sole enemy and highlights the importance of having a community. Miles away from home, the Congolese diaspora in Dubai is seeking more integration in the African community. Mayowa Adegoke has the story.
Harsh realities brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly on Africans in the Middle East, have caused an awakening among some community leaders. Perhaps more than ever before, there are talks of closing the gaps between different African diaspora groups, finding strength in numbers, and ensuring the welfare of Africans.
I want to bring the change for African people, because today one African people, the mistake he can make, it can cost all African people. Just why for my idea, I try to, even to my diaspora, to try to put everybody together. But for my vision, I want to put all Africa together. Because today if we're gonna be together, we're gonna try to make, we can change the story for Africa.
Dubai-based Congolese businessman Eric Mandala is leading his community to begin the mission of bridge building. Long before the pandemic, others have made similar efforts with platforms such as the UAE Africa Networking Group and the African Food Festival UAE.
The challenge is we are still very segmented, right? So even when you go in countries, we're still very segmented, and let alone when you start to expand it out. And I think that's why I started to get really heavily involved in the UAE Africa Networking Group, and in terms of what they see as a holistic vision of Africa, where it's about how do we do more regardless of whether it's north, south, east, or west. It's also aligned with the vision of UAE Africa. It's also aligned with the vision of the African Food Festival, but there's still a lot to do. So from a community perspective, have we realized there's a need for us to be more joint? Yes. Have we started making strides in terms of heading in that direction? Absolutely. I think we acknowledge the strides we're making, but we also have to acknowledge that there's still a wider gap in terms of us really honing together as a community.
African businesses have also taken a hit, propelling many to begin strategic partnerships in order to stay afloat.
We started the Lebanon as a way for African businesses and SMEs to come together, collaborate, provide an informal, informational webinar on their products or services. And so far, it's been a real success. It's been one of our best programs. We've enjoyed, our members have enjoyed a 20% conversion rate. Some of our African SMEs have not had any business, and because they actually took part in one of our collabinars, they've actually converted business when things were really, really bad. So it's been really fantastic for our partners.
Pandemic really changed so many things. Today we have to look at the way we are going, not where we come from. So Africans, for me, I will call Africans to be together. Let's stand together. We left our country very far. We are in new land. In where we are now, the only way we can go through it is when we are together.
As various sectors of the Middle East economy create new strategies to cope with the post-COVID reality, groups hard hit by the pandemic will do well to find new ways to solve old problems. From Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, Mayowa Adegoke for Foreign Dispatches.
Undoubtedly, 2020 has been a tough year, but many are finding healing through music. Music echoed through the streets of Beirut, Lebanon on Tuesday as the Beirut Chants Choir sang songs of tribute to the victims of a port explosion that occurred over a month ago, killing nearly 200 people.
Music from a destroyed church echoed through Beirut on Tuesday to mourn those lost in the August 4th port explosion and to pray for those who were wounded. The concert began at 6:07 p.m. local time, the time the explosion happened. Micheline Abisamra, the founder of Beirut Chants, which organizes music recitals in Beirut at Christmas, said she was moved to organize the concert to help the Lebanese deal with their emotions through music.
Now we are mourning, and this is a collective therapy we are doing because we need to feel the same feeling. We need to cry. And we need to cry all together. We need to cry. We are allowed to cry. Yes. Even when you don't see tears, we are bleeding. We are broken. We are hostages. We are hostages. And we need the world to help us.
Sound speakers were erected around the city to echo the music of the choir, singing from under the scaffolding of St. Maron Church, Kemaize, which was heavily damaged in the blast. One of the sound speakers stood in front of the Beirut port crane silos, where the explosion, caused by massive amounts of badly stored ammonium nitrate, reduced large parts of the city to rubble. The August 4th blast killed about 190 people and injured some 6,000.
It's enough. It's enough. This is Beirut. This is Beirut. This is the sound of Beirut. This is the sound of hope. Let's sing together. Let's pray together. Let's love each other.
On the streets of Beirut, one music student said Lebanese people have been through so many traumatic events that they are used to them, but the only hope is music.
I'm sure you've heard the saying, when you're feeling down, there's a song that can help pick you up. Well, doctors at the Alberto Sabogal Hospital in Peru have taken that lesson to heart, providing their patients with cheerful tunes in addition to medical treatment.
They say that laughter is the best medicine, but in this hospital in Peru, music has proven to be just as effective. Dr. Helga Solis, Alberto Sabogal Hospital's clinical manager and a soprano, walks through her wards belting out warm arias that drown out the sad beeps and hisses of monitors and machines.
People always like it when I sing, even though I sing as a lyric soprano. They like to hear me. They tell me, when you sing, we like it. It makes us feel well. This is the idea that we don't just focus on the illness they have, but for them to feel something different that's pleasant.
Officials here call it a song to ease the pain, and the patient can't get enough.
A song like that lifts the spirit of those of us who are in delicate health, and it gives us more strength to keep fighting. I think it's something very nice they are doing for all of us who are hospitalized here.
Another serenading doctor at the hospital, Martin Kolka, says beyond sounding nice, music improves patients' moods.
We see that when there's music, when we sing, even if they're having a bad moment, going through this situation, there is still space for happiness. There's still space for hope. To be able to say, look, we're alive. We can keep going. Let's give it a shot. Let's be optimistic. I think that's important. Music provides that, especially to your state of mind.
This trend is not only in Peru. Amid the COVID-19 pandemic, many communities around the world have turned to music as a means of distraction and healing.
And on that note, this is where we end the program today. Don't forget that you can keep up with all our top stories on channelstv.com. Thanks for watching. I'm Tenyola Shoboale. See you next time.